Great. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. Good evening, and it doesn't seem like evening being so bright out there, but welcome to the Economic Development Committee meeting for Wednesday, June 25th. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Thank you to everybody. And nobody's joining remote. Okay. All right, so we'll call the meeting to order at 6:34. We did the Pledge of Allegiance. Public input, I guess, will occur at 6:45, but I don't see anybody there yet, but I'll make a note. Does anybody have anything that they want to say first, or anything to the agenda that is not there?
Nope.
All right. All right, let's get to our first order of business then. The approval of the minutes from March 26th, 2025. I'm going to go look at those minutes. We've had some people that were not here. So does anybody that cannot vote on the minutes? I don't see the minutes here from last time. Oh, you're going to abstain, right?
I don't think I was here either.
All right, let me go look them up. Here are the minutes here.
Nope.
Do they say? Oh, members, Peter,
Absent.
not here. Jeremy's here. Peter Plansky. Okay. Well, this is the March 20, well, that's the smallest fly I've ever saw. March? Well, I was here too. All right. So we have Kim, Jeremy, and Peter. What is our quorum? Quorum, is it 3? I don't remember. Even if Marion shows, we couldn't do it. Is it 3 or 5? Because we're supposed to have 10 people, right? All right, so I guess
we went over this last time, right, Jeremy?
Okay, so I guess the last meeting, I was on a business trip. We only had, I guess Jason was here. We only had like 2 people? We didn't have a quorum last time, right?
We had 3.
The one time I go on a business trip, right? So we had to postpone them then, and you would have had to abstain anyway, right? All right, so we sent out for the Board of Selectmen to ask people to come back. We did it 6 months. I don't think we need 6 months because we're plowing through this report pretty well, but we're going to need everyone's help to kind of finish it and put your pieces in, because you all have expertise, and you did a wonderful job on the, remember we were putting the focus group together? You remember you did all of that?
Okay,
That was
yep.
wonderful. But again, if that's not what you want to do, we'll assign tonight, but you did a great job with all of that. You with the zoning, right? So we'll go into that a little bit.
Okay.
All right, so Marion wasn't at this meeting anyway, so she couldn't attend. Welcome back. All right, so we're going to have to postpone these minutes again.
Why would you postpone the minutes?
Well, we don't have a quorum to vote on them.
You don't need a quorum to vote on
Do we
them.
need
There's
a quorum
people
to vote
that
on the
can
minutes?
abstain. I think you just need a quorum, period.
Is that true?
You need a quorum to hold the meeting.
Hold a meeting.
Right, but we have a.
Period.
Jason's point, I think,
Is
is
you
we
can
have
still
a
vote on
quorum
the
to hold a
minutes?
meeting. We still can vote on the meeting.
Oh, I've
The
never been
people
in
that
this
are here
situation.
Who weren't
that
there for
true?
the meeting can
Okay.
abstain.
I think he's right.
Right, did I say that right?
Yeah.
All right, I have never been in this situation.
We
and
only
I've
need a
never seen
majority
this.
to pass him.
All right, so we have a quorum. We're fine. All right, if it's true, if not, we can research it, but if it's true, we can do this, right? Do you know that? Do you know the law for sure? I'm not sure.
You should have a quorum, so the people that are voting
Yes.
should be a quorum of the board, a quorum of the committee. That's the, but
So you could only ever approve the minutes if the 4 people that were at the meeting are at this meeting.
if you have a quorum of the people that was at the meeting, so if there were 4 people at the meeting, 3 of them would have to be here.
Google says you can't do it without a quorum.
What about ChatGPT?
Let me check that one next.
But there's nothing anywhere that says that. You need a.
You don't need to approve minutes by law,
Right, you
period.
They're posted, but
Okay.
Right, you don't, but it's a good
They're
practice.
posted.
It's a good practice to approve the meeting minutes. But you need a quorum to open a meeting. And this isn't like a land use board where you need like a majority or 3 people to act on an application. I think you can do it without a quorum.
well, we still have 3 people here that were there, right? 3 of us out of the 4. You're saying we need a
You'd ha-
majority.
So you'd have to have a majority to approve the minutes, because
Okay,
you
so we
have to
have
have
that,
a
right?
majority to approve a motion. A motion can't pass without.
All right. So we do have 3. We have Jeremy, myself, and Peter, right? Does anybody have any changes they would like or I'll take a motion to approve.
No?
All right, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting.
Do we have a second? All those in favor, say aye. We have
Aye.
3.
Abstain.
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 All right, we have 303. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let's go back. Next. All right, so I just added this note because we did have a meeting on May 28th, but we didn't have a quorum. Kim and I went and we reviewed all the minutes that we've had. I think we had like 10 or 12 meetings, I don't remember the number. We looked at all so we gave you a summary of every meeting, what were the takeaways of all the meeting. And we also gave all the attachments that were at those meetings, that were up into the portal, right? So who was here last time? We had Jason, who was the other person that was here? Peter was here, right?
Jeremy
The
and
last
Peter.
one
The
that
last
only
meeting.
me, you, and Peter were here?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was just you and Peter?
It was me, Peter, and Jason, that was it.
Okay, so did you go over with them? Because I had a business trip, so we kind of prepared work. We went over the timeline to recap to get everybody back together, right?
Yeah.
We were going gangbusters up until the focus group. The focus group happened in like September, right, or something like that. And then we met October 30th. Some of the people from the focus group came back, but we went over the focus group and we did some more analysis, which you're going to see today. The next month was November. It was the night before Thanksgiving. Everybody said no. Then it was Christmas Day. You said no. In January, there was a technical hiccup because there's 2 calendars for the town. It was updated in one, but not the other, so people didn't know about the meeting. That was fixed. Now, with that said, because everybody on the committee, there's 10 of us other than the citizen rep, so 9, we're all on different committees, and every room is booked because we all have to be here when we're not at a meeting, and there's only so much room. So that's why we meet the once a month. Okay, now, and also end of the year, it was all the public hearings and all of that. So we did a recap to let you know where we were. So you went over that with them in detail, or did you just give it to them to walk away with?
Yes, Peter went over it at
Oh,
the
wow,
last
you guys are
meeting.
troopers.
He did.
Yeah, we just talked for a while.
Okay, perfect. So you saw the timeline, and we regrouped, and then after that, we came back, we went over a couple of more pieces of data, and we also brought in that software company that can track traffic going in and out of towns and where they're going for businesses, just to have the last piece of data, right? And that's where we were here. All right, so you had that from last week. So I handed out 2 things today, they're drafts. You don't have to post to a portal if it's a draft. I don't mind if it goes out, but it's rough, because we're gonna start to assign pieces of where we want to go. Table of contents, anything in gray, we've already written, but again, you can modify it the way you want, but we already started to do that. So we'll look at that in a moment. We'll look at this in a second. I didn't put every date in here for meetings, I only put key dates, they're in red, that you'll see. It's color coordinated because if you go to page 3, we have, the Board of Selectmen gave us 5 charges that we had to do for this committee, okay? So page 3 is right here, yeah. So,
Page 3 of 2, by the way.
well, I didn't.
That's some good math right there.
I just said page number, I don't know what the, I hit page number, right, okay.
No, it's fine.
Oh, yeah, then it's 5 of 2 and
Okay.
so forth, so yeah.
So anyway, so we're supposed to create an economic strategy, right? What the desires of the townspeople. Now, that's gonna be a discussion later. It seems that what the town wanted is not gonna help them a lot tax-wise, financially, but our charge was to do what the townspeople wanted. Again, we can elaborate on that later and add 2 other items to it as well. Recommendations for the planning board, zoning board, all of that would come out of this. The master plan chapter, which is, I don't know how big it is, it's an attachment. We don't have to create their master plan chapter to replace the 2002 one. The 2002 master plan chapter had the circumventual highway in it. That's why they designed it, the current strategy we use today, right? When we came back from a NRPC meeting, they said the circumventual for that project is gone. So then they said, well, we need another economic strategy because it's no longer there. So that's why we are here doing this, right? So and Jeremy, you had done this in a past meeting where you said we could do 1 and 2. Definitely we could deliver that mostly today.
Right.
I don't think we can do, well, we could probably do 3 when we come up with some of the zoning, when we talk about the last part. But 4 and 5, you know, but I don't think there's much we can deliver there until we figure the strategy out, but that's really, I don't think there's a lot there. But anyway, definitely 1, 2, and 3 we could do. I think we're done with 2 at this point, or close, and then we'll get to 3. All right, again, this is just a pass 1. When we had our certain meetings, right, we started to talk about, I'm on page 3, going down to residents' needs and desires, our first meeting out of the chute. We started talking about surveys and focus groups, but then we just went back and we had, hey, we don't even know what the current economic strategy is. We had homework assigned, right? Go look at the economic chapter and read it, and look at these other 4 chapters that feed into the economic strategy. So we looked at chapter 2, and on the next page, we looked at chapter 2, the population and housing. We looked at transportation, economic development, community design. Because we had a lot of people new to this group who had never worked with the economic development piece. The reason on page 3 that I have a question mark next to chapter 2 is we had the homework and we read it, but if you go up to the website today, there's a draft for 2024. We didn't read that one, but it's gone, so I don't remember the year. I just have to fill it in. So again, we're going to make another pass at this, but at least you see what I did. So we all read those chapters individually, and then we came back and we discussed them, right? And some people went, wow, and some people said, oh, yeah, you know, it was really an education. All right, so let me just, town assessment data we reviewed. On the next, we decided to do a SWOT analysis. Everybody went home and came up with strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So it was going to be a strategy that we would look for as we went forward. We regrouped, and we made one big one with the key pieces of that. We didn't put everybody's changes, but the key takeaways, right? So we're into October of 2023 at that point. Let me just get past here. Yeah, I don't like that page number. It's messing me up.
Easy fix, everyone. Easy fix.
Okay. I'd like you to go back to page 2, almost keep it like a book just for temporary for me. And I appreciate you being kind to me, let me get through this, but we're getting the public up to speed again. Page 2 in red, the Board of Selectmen created the committee in May of 2023, okay? Next page, actually at the bottom of the page, we went out at that point and had every committee give representation to us, and they had to get back to us by June 1st, right, 2023. We had our first meeting on the next page on July 20th of 2023.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's when we went over the charter, and then we started talking about residents and surveys. You know, we knew that was going to be coming in the future, right? So then we had homework assigned. On the next page, the SWOT analysis started October 23rd when we brought all our information together. Okay, so that's where we were. So then we started to say we need a survey, right? So we spent about 3 or 4, I say 4 weeks creating a survey. We started to call it a community outreach survey. We used our pieces of our master planner, SWOT, 6 neighboring towns. I'm on the bottom of page 4, the second paragraph on the bottom, under residents' needs and desires. Okay, so we looked at Amherst, Wyndham, Pelham. Remember we had a bunch that we looked at? Yep. And we had, I think Jason was here then. We were doing QR codes or online. How are we going to administer it? How are we going to roll it out, right? Was really what was going on then. Yep. Okay. So at that point, it was going to be at the town meeting, but then all of a sudden it was starting to be November, December. We're saying, well, could we put it at the town election, right? So then February 22nd, on page 5, we completed the final refinements of the survey questions because we were refining it. We were making sure the wording was good. We didn't have bias. Remember, we were going through all of that. There was a big stretch, right? All right, so on the top of the page, final refinements were done. Let's see the appendix. We had hard copy surveys at locations, promotional materials, staffing for the town elections. So because you had to research whether we can even do this in an election, right? All right, so those dates are important. So March 22nd, the surveys were due. March 27th, we would have the data lined up, right? All right, we'll fill this in later, the surveys of the economic one results, see attachment, whatever. You know, there's gonna be a lot of attachments at the bottom, but we'll put the main takeaways of the themes here, okay? We'll probably have 4 or 5 pictures inserted here, okay? Mm-hmm. All right, so we continued our research at that point. So even though we went over the survey results that night, on the 27th, we came back and started talking about budgets, assessments, taxes, land use, economic assessment. We were going through all of this eminent domain land, what was available, right? So why they're in blue is when the Board of Selectmen comes back to me and says, did you do your research? Everything in blue is everything we discussed, or had research, or had data backing it up. Okay? That makes sense? Because I want them to know all the research was done. So we'll have all the appendices there. So after we did all of that, the community outreach, they told us what they wanted. They didn't say where, but they told us what they wanted. Right? And and in parallel, we were doing these 1 through 6 items at the same time, right? So then we said, okay, let's have a focus group. Okay? All right, so we planned it. And then that took 4 or 5 times, and then we really did a lot because, yeah, all right, we had the maps, we had GIS maps, MS4 maps, budget limitation, tax, we were looking at all of this land use, right? We were discussing in parallel 1 through 5 on page 6. All of those were going on at our meetings, okay? All right, we note on the middle of page 6 that items 1, 4, and 5 would require zoning ordinance changes, so we knew that would be coming up, because we're getting to that as our recommendations later, right? All right, so what the focus group did, I'm still in the middle, finalized its agenda, questions, the forum flow, the members' roles, because we were talking about scribes and the materials, right? A presentation was created by Jay Mankara. He took the outreach survey of what businesses they wanted, and he created renderings of these types of buildings. And he also did a few other things than that was on the survey, like taking it to the next step if you wanted a little strip mall or a little coffee shop or something, Duncan, right? All right, so that's in the appendix. I'll get it from him. So when he did those, when we had the presentation, when we had the focus group here, it was up there. The renderings were shown. At each one, he said what potential zoning ordinance changes would have to happen, what variances would have to happen, and what special exceptions would have to happen. That is in here. That's the second handout I gave you. The reason it's a draft is I wasn't sure if I should mention the people's names who showed up to the forum or not, because I can replace it with participant 1, participant 2, participant 3. I don't know if I actually got original feedback from this group, if they wanted me to do that. So I never posted, this is the minutes from the group forum of who attended, but don't say their names out loud yet, because I'm not sure about legal, you know? But do you want me, is it considered a legal meeting? I'm assuming it is. We didn't tape it. Do you want me to put participant 1, participant 2, participant 3, or people's names? Is there a legal question I should ask about this? You think if they showed up, they assume? I don't know. We got a couple of lawyers. I'll let you think about that. But I haven't posted this because it was just our meeting. It was not taped.
I think without talking to the people that were here, and I was not here for that thing, we were away, but
No, but if they're here,
before I put people's names up there, I would.
So this is only our group sees this. That's why it's handed out, okay?
Putting names
Because
in
when I do research, I don't want people's names. Yeah, I use a 30-mile radius of, whatever I do, right? So should I check with legal on this, or what do you?
I don't
or
think
check with
I
them?
don't think there's any reason to check with legal.
But I could put participant 1, 2, 3. Is that going to
You
be a
could,
problem?
I think the name should just stay, because.
So if they were here
Right.
and they were participating in the meeting,
Right.
Matt wouldn't, our secretary would not put their names in the minutes. It's required to put the members, list the members of the committee that was at the meeting. It's not required to put individual residents unless they get up to address the committee.
And they did not.
Then they have to list their name and their address.
They did not, because it was just a
So was anything,
coordinated, like you said,
Right.
set up the tables.
it was
and
just
have
a
them go around.
discussion.
Open conversation is all it was.
So what do you want me to do? Because I didn't post it because I wasn't sure. But my point, we can have that, why don't we settle that now? Do you want me to change it, post it? What do you want me to do with this? Because it's a legal document, right? And this research goes into here. The results of this that I mentioned come into this document here. So what should I do? Should I just put participants, or?
You could put the participant and then you don't have any more questions about whether it's legal or not.
I'll just put participant 1, 2, 3.
I don't have I don't think you're doing anything illegal by listing the names, but if people wanted to err on the side of caution and just do one participant, 1, 2, and 3, you can't. I don't think you're gonna get into any type of legal trouble listing the names.
Should
So I
you
think it's
want
just
me
a
to check
preference.
Is it gonna matter, like, tracking who said what later on at all, if you just do, no?
I don't
Then-
think there's anything that's
Then don't worry about
condemning anybody's reputation.
Yeah.
But do you want me to check with them
I don't
personally?
even think you have to, you could just put discussion and list the discussion.
Okay, you want me to
mean-
just put the bullet points of the discussions instead and remove the participants? Okay, all right, I will do that. Again, I'm just trying to protect their integrity, you know. Okay. All right, so I will make sure of that. But what's important why this is out is if you go to the one that's the minutes that I didn't publish yet, because I wasn't sure legally what to do. At the back page, I think we started to get into recommendations they were making. Basically, what they're saying, I won't say names, the feathering was one. Start Route 3A, the north and south side of town. We could feather in businesses on 3A that would blend in nicely and seamlessly. We wouldn't really know they were there, or it'd be very small to notice they were there. So that was the feathering for 3A. So start at the southern part of town, what would it say? Have larger businesses, if you wanted, you know, on Route 102, like the Panera and Dunkin's, right? Move north and feather in little businesses like little restaurants or wineries, and then when you get north, do bigger businesses again. So that was the feathering that was discussed. That would be zoning. All right, the third and fourth and sixth, seventh comment was really emphasizing more on home businesses, maybe be a little kinder, grandfathered, or let them have businesses or signs in there. Try to expand the economics through home businesses. Also, a business directory, which I did see on What's Up Litchfield. Somebody created a business directory now I gave it a thumbs up. I usually get in and out of there, so I was so happy to see that.
Yeah, it was directed towards loosening business regulations
Yeah.
for residential zoning.
Okay.
That's what it was directed towards.
Okay.
So that's the key part of that.
Okay, but I thought it was like a business, we should get a directory anyway.
Jeremy, what did
for
you say?
businesses.
It was loosening business regulations for businesses located inside a home in a residential
Yeah, that's what
neighborhood.
this person was doing.
That was the key
The person
part he was
on-
talking about.
Yeah, on
In
person,
here,
yeah,
In
3,
here, yeah,
4,
yeah, yeah.
6, and 7.
Yeah.
Just the regulations.
Yeah.
To expand a business in your home before you have to go to a bigger,
Yeah.
facility afterwards. Okay. So I think those were the two ones. I will say, and we have to make a decision, part 4 on that, on page 4. So what happened was, we prepared a lot of material for the people who came. They looked at the maps, we brought them up to speed on everything that was blue so far, and then we started to talk about potential solutions, but it was 8:30 at that point, and they said we should come back and have a second meeting. So, because they finally had the information to say, wow, and some said this is gonna be difficult, you know, so if we're gonna have a second meeting, that's up to you, but they could be part of a normal scheduled meeting. It doesn't have to be a meeting just for that, right? Or they can get our report that we all kind of finally bless and bring ideas into it to see. Or maybe we misspoke for them and they could correct it, but. So you can see that I said that on part 4 at 8:30, the group said things were discussed and next steps. Participants thought it'd be best to have a second focus group meeting in order to start the recommendation phase. So, one I did speak to, and I think would be happy to do it, but, we can have that discussion later. So that, again, that's up to the group, but it might be beneficial. Not a whole minute, because we got to get this delivered, but
Right.
in parallel, right? Okay, so far, are we okay? Okay. So I think I put back to page 6 on the focus group. In red, what do we say? Focus group? Okay, I know we said it was a hard stop on August 26th for that, to sign up for the focus group. I think we expanded it to Wednesday, the 28th, right? But then we had it the September 12th. I did say, and I was honest in the paragraph above it, we sent 300 invitations, an email out to the people, I'm looking above, so I'm on page 6, in the middle section above the dates. I said invitations were sent via email. So when the people did the community outreach survey, one of the questions was, would you be willing to help in this committee? 300 checked yes, 300 plus. So we emailed them directly to come to the focus group. I know we had it all over all the social media, right? And it was on, and we had links to other media, and it was great. The turnout was not what we wanted. I think, what we had, 6 to 8.
So, yeah.
But, and it was, we posted it many times, so,
We made an effort.
I think we were, and I know we were expecting to go to the high school and then it came here, but I think it was successful as far as information. All right, so next. The focus group occurred September 12th. The next time we met, we went over the results, okay? And that was that thing I sent you that I wasn't sure about the names, I kept the minutes for that. All right, so basically feathering, I'm on the bottom of page 6. The themes were feathering, zoning modifications for more residential businesses, and a business directory. But again, they wanted to come back, okay? So we had that. Okay. And I do like how the community survey, the first one, went into the presentation for the focus group, right? Because we were trying to bring all that forward. All right, so post-research. All right, this is where I ran out of time today. So I think if I had one more day, but I have the information here, I just gotta make it pretty. We did post-research after the fact, then we didn't have the meeting. So on October 30th, we came back and we talked about that, right? And I'll put in the other stuff that we talked about. No meeting, no meeting, no meeting. So that's why the perception under the public, and it is true, we had a quarter of a stall because that happened. And again, I only have to emphasize, and it's not a great excuse. I'm not making an excuse, but we only meet once a month because we only have people here. Everyone's in another committee. Could we work on that? I think we could. But again, with public hearings and everything at the year end, it was just a nightmare. All right. So we got back on track on February 26th. All right. I think when we did this, again, I'd like, if you look at the middle of page 8, we had a lot of things going on here. Laurie made great suggestions here. It's highlighted in blue in the middle. But we would, before we talk about that, go up to the top part of A, the first A. Again, I'm in draft mode here, right? I'll make it beautiful for the next week. You'll get it I think within a week, we could probably have this done. Up until this point, well, then we're gonna get recommendations from people. You go. All right. The only thing I would like to say, we did a lot of more, we looked at the actual land. So the first tax assessment information we were looking at is what businesses would bring tax dollar-wise. That was at the beginning. Then we went back to tax assessment data again for here, and we were really looking at land and availability, right? Because that's a big factor. We don't have a lot of land left in the commercial zones. So let's just keep going. My point is, we're looking this from any way we can. So Laura, middle of the page, did you want to add anything to that, Kim? Okay, so in the middle of the page in blue, Laura suggested that the northern and southern sections of the Charles Bancroft Highway could accommodate more intense commercial uses, with the central portion of the highway could be designated with an overlay district, which would allow specific businesses such as small bakeries, the restaurants, what they wanted in the survey, and what the focus group was talking about, right? They could do it, but it would also include performance standards to maintain the town's rural charm. That was the balance, right? These standards would dictate architectural elements, setbacks, all of that, right? So again, we're trying to now say, these are the businesses you wanted according to the survey. These are the renderings, this is what you want. How can we make them work where we're at, right? So that's one of the things you did. The mixed use area up there, they also have to do a report to show that at the offset of the town, that it's cost effective, right? It's not impacting the town in a negative way. That's another check and balance we had, right?
Yep.
All right, so again, if I go through this and beautify it, I probably need one more day just to beautify the next page and these 2 pages. But let's go further on to the takeaways, okay? Go to page 10. But basically, what I'm gonna say is everything in blue is everything else we analyzed, why this was going on, to finally say, we're done, generate what we have, okay? All right, so what do we have on page, what did I tell you to go? Okay,
Page 10.
Okay, we already brought in the software people for the tracking. But again, in here is gonna be about maybe another 8 blue things that we discussed, okay? All right, takeaways. So as we're going through this process for the last year and a half, right, things in town are changing, things at the state are changing. All right, so we were noticing some things coming up anyway, bubbling, that would be hard to miss. So let's just see. At the time, because this was before voting, mixed use was going to be a zoning ordinance, but we said if that happens, that's going to affect, the economy, fine. So we just had to be aware of how that outcome went. We talked about an overlay district potentially, right? We would look at that. The historic district was maybe being discussed. We didn't know how that would impact, right? The feathering, came to the surface. Home-based businesses seem to be coming. Infrastructure needs had to be balanced with specific businesses, right? We've had big discussions on that. You know, we can't bring certain businesses in because of infrastructure, but if we're gonna put money into infrastructure, you know, these businesses happen. We had discussions. But we have to make number 7, economic impact assessment and tax implications of various business scenarios. It says businesses won't provide tax relief if needed. If we actually give them the businesses they wanted, it's not gonna, we just have to be real about it. If it's the ones they wanted. Doesn't mean we don't create an atmosphere to bring other ones in, but that is something that came to fruition, right? It wasn't gonna happen that way. All right, so the community wants, existing conditions, what else did I say? Oh, the note on page 11 for Jason. I think Diane started, then Jason started, and I just didn't know whose name was gonna go on this, that's why that's there. All right, so anyway, all right, so Kim started to write certain things about the survey. This is the questions that were on the survey, 1 through 8. Again, this is just our work in process that's gonna be shoved into the document, okay? All right, takeaways. So, let me just see if there's anything else. So these are our charges you put here. Looks like charge 1 through 5, right? All right. So let's go for a second here. A collaborative document is good. Okay, I don't mind that. The problem we have, not that it's a big problem, but the main problem is we can't all share the same document for security reasons in Google Doc, right? Can we?
I think we can.
We
but
could.
we
Do you
could,
want that? Do you
but-
want everybody to be in here sharing the same document? Do you want me to finish the last 2 pages and we go with it, and you guys get assigned to put all the attachments in that need to go in?
As a person who's not a fan of the Google Doc,
I know, I hear you. I'm not in the butt.
I think if you gave everybody a section that you want to do,
Yeah?
then we could edit it ourselves and then submit it to be inserted into.
So, so do you want to read what I have for a draft? You want to give, if I have a couple days to finish the last 2 pages, if I give these out, that's fine, because you did a lot on sections, right? I'm sure you did too. We all did. We all did different pieces, and we all had different insights to bring into it, right? And so you took a lot of work, Kim, and I appreciate it. All the minutes, so last week, all of our minutes are there, and all of the attachments that were in all the minutes are there. So if you want to pull out specific ones to go into the document, I don't know, or do you want me to continue on this way and then we do that later? You tell me. I mean, I don't know how many more sections we really have left. If we go back to the table of contents, again, this is rough. Anything that's not in gray, I haven't 100% thought through yet, but I'm assuming it's going to be that. So economic post-focus group research, which I already went over, we have a lot of that. Not a lot, but that's coming. And then we had the Placer software part of that. All right. I think at this point, even if I finish the last 2 pages, we are at the point of recommendations, right? We're there. And we saw some things come to the surface that are there, right? Do you want me to finish? So I guess we need a strategy. I can take a couple more days to finish it, and you can read it, walk away with recommendations, I'll come back with that. Or we can assign different sections, and if you want to add to it,
I think we need
modify
to,
it.
I think that all this stuff is good, but the only thing that people are gonna read or they're gonna focus on are the recommendations. And
Yeah, I
having
agree.
been here several meetings, I don't think we've ever gotten that out on the table.
Okay,
Folks have
yeah,
mentioned things that they think, but that they think would be beneficial. But
Right.
we all haven't sat here on the group, like Laura brought up a few very good examples, but we've never brought it to the entire committee to say, do we all agree to this? Yes, we agree to that. That's
right,
recommendation
that's
number
the
1.
next step, yeah. I agree with you on that, yeah.
Okay.
That's what I mean, we have to have them first, so we can, because this is not a final edit. You'd still have to go back and everyone would edit this and do what you want. And I agree with you on that. I do agree, so one of the charters, we're not doing the master plan for the planning board, but they're gonna take a lot of this information and stick it in there. All of our population, you know what I mean, all the census data, all of that. And after a year and a half, we've got to really tell them where we got all this information from, why we came to the if you just give them, here's a list of recommendations, which I agree they want, they're gonna say why. how did you come to that conclusion? That's why all the supportive stuff is in there, which will all be Appendix A, Appendix B, Appendix C, right? So they can go into the
Well,
C.
if you finish this.
Yeah.
Going into our next meeting,
Yep.
distribute it before the meeting.
Yep.
We can then all talk next meeting about recommendations, and that's it.
Yeah, come up with your
That's
proposed
what we do.
recommendations. And there's things that that I make, that's on here yet, right?
Right.
Because it's resonating with you.
Yeah.
Right? And do you want the second group back if they're willing, or, you know, again, I don't know how to handle that too, because it's public
I
information,
think you're
right?
just delaying,
Yeah,
you're just
I
delaying
have
the whole
recommendations, you
process.
have why don't you bring your I have some, you have some,
I
why don't
think
we
we
put
should
them
just
all
talk
together?
about it.
Then why would we wait?
Yeah,
Because
just
I'm
talk
looking
about
at,
Yeah,
like,
I think we're close, yes, I agree, yep.
we talk about them now.
Yep, go ahead.
No, I was saying, because I'm looking where it says Kim section, I think those are the bold are what I put in for the charges.
She's just
Right.
talking about this.
Okay, yeah, but then we're saying like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, I think those are, the charges are really, in my opinion.
So that's in the table of contents, because they want that, so we have to deliver that, right?
Right, but I mean, some of those recommendations, I mean, the first charge is create an economic survey, we did that, so I think.
Well, I don't know if we really created the strategy yet. Now our recommendations are coming in for the strategy.
No, this is.
Strategy's a 3A feather.
No, I didn't say, I said create an economic survey. Is that
Oh,
charge?
survey. I thought you said strategy.
No,
Sorry.
create an economic survey, that's the charge and data collection model that will adequately reflect, so we know that. I'm just,
Oh, wait a minute.
I'm very much a charge
No,
person.
no. Charge number 1 is to create an economic strategy.
Not that I
These.
have.
Page 3.
No, I'm talking about the charges that the Board of Selectmen gave us, is different from your charge that you have on the front
That's
page.
the one I had.
So if you go to page 11, those
Yeah,
charges.
you're saying they're out of sync? Well, if it's a survey, it's easy, but at the end of the day, our recommendations are gonna be the strategy.
I know, but let me just go.
If they're out of sync, that's fine.
No, I think they're
we'll fix it.
worded
No,
differently.
I see it in, what we're saying.
so
it says
if
create an
you go
economic
to
survey,
page
data
again-
collection model.
Yes,
are you
this is why
looking on
we're in a
page 11?
collaborative document. I'm
Page-
typing and she's typing.
Page 11.
Page
Halfway
11,
down
yes.
under the
Okay,
10K
guys.
section.
so those are the charges that I thought we had, so that says
We
survey.
can, yes, but the results are gonna be the economic strategy. I will look at what they actually are. That's the problem with collaborating, because that's Kim's writing versus mine, right? That's,
No, I didn't
No,
write
I
that.
did this. This
I
is-
didn't write that.
I
I
think-
wrote the responses that were tabulated and reviewed. I
not sure
wrote
what you're
the
talking about.
paragraph.
There, oh, I know, they're
What page
talking
are you
about
talking
this, right here.
Can I put a timeout, because I think people are
Where's the
getting
gap? Give Laura
confused
the
here?
gavel.
Page 11? Yeah. Just so I know the page, that's all.
Create an
We
economic,
have
that's not the
miscommunication, and our
charges.
document is gonna be faulty if we don't, our report's not gonna be the way we
Yes.
want it.
This is why we
So-
have to proofread, I
Right, so
agree.
what I'm saying is, what's in the beginning of this report is not the charge. The charge is.
Okay,
what's
I can
done
fix
on
that.
pa-
It's
Right,
just
but
a-
I'm not saying to, I'm just saying, so we're all on the same page, so on page 11,
Yep.
I put those bold paragraphs in, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's our charge. That's what we were
Okay,
tasked to
it's just a
do.
typo, I can fix that.
Yeah, no.
So
I
we're
bet-
done with charge 1.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, so we're done with that, and then if you go to 2, we haven't done anything with, 2.
Well, they're bubbling up.
Right.
In this document, they're starting to see the patterns and themes, yes. But
Right.
we have to, like Jason said, we have to formally come back with our recommendations, talk about them as a group, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think they're bubbling up, plus to take and come up with them, and we can do that our next time, or start tonight, I don't care. But part of 2 is, we have to start getting them ready for the economic, to replace the
Keep going,
existing
Laura.
chapter. Yep.
But I think we're off. I think that the charge, we did 1, 2 says establish recommendations to the planning board, and that's just based on one chapter, chapter 6, and I think I put all those things in there that were in chapter 6, so we should be looking at that.
Yep.
3, we
That's it.
haven't,
Yep, we got it.
we haven't touched on 3 at all, about bylaws, policies, regulations.
Well, you started talking about some with the overlays and the feathering.
But I think this is asking for more. This is, the way I read it, is the select board saying, if we get economic development in here, we get developers in there, what is there about our policies that are gonna make people want to come? Or what are there about our policies that are gonna make people that don't wanna come? So I don't think any board member here has taken a look at the bylaws, the policies, the regulations that are good for us, are not good for us.
Yes, so again, our homework was to review that chapter, which we did.
I'm
You're
on-
right, we have to come back with
So,
what they wanted. The focus group started to say the zoning and variance changes that they needed, but we really have to go in detail now and go back to that chapter. I don't know if it's a rewrite, but to make the recommendations on it.
No.
For the chapter. That's what it's saying, for chapter,
No.
we have to replace that
Yeah,
chapter.
I
not
said
we,
for
but
chapter
planning
2,
board.
I'm on 3 now. So 2, we have to look at chapter 6. and read it and comment on those things that I put, all of those things there.
yes, I
Chapter,
agree.
the next one, 3, advise the select board and other town boards on issues concerning bylaws, policies, regulations. We haven't done that at all.
Is that chapter 6 also, number 3?
No, so on page 12, you have Roman numeral 2.
Yeah.
That's just chapter 6.
Wait, wait, I got a
Chapter
little
six
ahead of
said
me
that-
here. What's this,
Yeah,
what's this
this
page?
one.
Hold on. Hold on, guys. So that's Kim's work, not my work, or something.
No, this is
No,
my
it's not
work.
my work.
This
Oh,
is
that's
my
your
work. So
So
what
we
I,
should have a meeting. This is what I'm saying, stop, guys,
Oh,
stop.
mine.
Stop, stop, stop. So if you and I have a meeting and fix this, right? Can we do that? Can you and I do that, or do we want to do this now, or?
I mean, I think it's an easy fix. I think
I do
it's just taking the charge, and I think what I have is the right way the charge that we were given should be listed.
Okay, we'll validate both, because I don't know why there's two, and you and I are reading the same thing. So we need to find out, we're seeing the same thing, you're seeing something. Laura, we can fix that offline,
Yeah,
it's not
that's
for
fine.
now. So this is
Well,
what I'm saying, there's gonna be edits, this is, it says draft, right?
But I think,
I'll go back.
We can all go back and look at that, they're small, I agree. All right,
but I don't think they're small, because I think that sets the foundation, and I pulled it up right
I
here,
agree with you.
and I have the charge, and it says create an economic survey, and that's exactly what I took. So if I took
Okay.
it off our website
Fine.
the wrong way.
Done with one, we'll insert the survey, so it's all set. Next, number 2.
I see it.
Establish recommendations to the, see, these are out of order than the ones that are on the other page.
So if I'm a member of the community and I look at what our charge is, I'm going to the website, and then how they are listed on the website is my bolded Roman numerals.
I'm not doubting that.
I know, but what I'm saying to you,
We will synchronize it, we'll fix it.
right, but moving forward,
Yes,
That-
we're all agreeing, yep. So we'll fix that. And, all right, so let's go on. So you want to look at yours versus the first part? So number 1 is good. If I'm on page 12 now, right?
Yep.
So page 12, if we're going to look at yours, recommendations to the planning board and the board of selectmen on updates to chapter 6. Yes, we have to look at that. That was an attachment, and we can look at that. Then we may not agree with the format that they had, because they were doing something different than we were. They were in a reaction mode of the highway going in, and you can tell that by their table of contents, right, how they were doing it. But let's look at that, I agree, this is a change. We don't have to do the planning board's job, but we have to just give them the information they need, I agree. Yep. Okay, that is a big task, I agree with you on that, because it's detailed. But we can't really do that until we come up with recommendations, right?
Well, we have to read chapter 6, and based on what's in chapter 6, we are, the way I understand it, is we're supposed to provide recommendations to the planning board and the board of selectmen.
We read one of these chapters that was supposed to be that. Economic strategy, yes. Hold on. No, that's the charter. Give me a second. Where's our homework that we had? Where was the homework? We did read that chapter, right? Chapter 6. We did read chapter 6 way at the beginning. Now we have to go back.
Yeah, and I know
Yes.
it was assigned to us for
Right.
homework, but we never had a
Right. We didn't get to this point
discussion
yet.
to say, hey, look, this is what they said in 2002.
Right. I agree with you.
What changes or updates do we think need to be made to chapter 6? And those recommendations that we would establish
Right.
would go to the
So
planning board.
if you
and
look
board
at
of
that, it needs population data, census data. That's all the stuff that we were doing all those weeks, right? We were pulling all those blue pieces in, that not all will go in, but some will go into that chapter.
The way the chapter's set up, it's employment and economic base.
Yep.
Indicators of economic growth, property taxes, fiscal impact analysis of
Yep.
future commercial development, fiscal impact analysis alternative, no sewers, implementing sewers, discussion of non-residential fiscal impact analysis, and conclusion and economic strategy.
That's what I'm saying. We may not have the same table of contents. We should look at that and see which ones have to stay and which ones we may have to add. Yes,
I mean,
I agree. That has to be done.
Yep.
But a part of that chapter is recommendations, so we have to get there. So,
Honestly, I think we're gonna have to review the chapter again, so it's.
yeah,
also
review the
fresh in everybody's
chapter,
mind.
and you're gonna see.
Kind of go through it bullet by bullet.
Because the data that.
To the chart.
Yeah, and a lot of the data will be the same, the census data, the economic, right? We can do that. But some of it won't be, because based on these blue items, it's bringing us down a road also, right? What's actually available for land now might not have been then, you know, things like that. But I agree with you, that is an exercise that is big and meticulous to do. But I don't know if everybody, all people here have to do that, right?
Well, I think it would make better for, better conversation if everybody had at least read the chat.
Oh, I definitely read the chat, I agree with you on that, absolutely, I'll read it again, right? Because you got hit with it, yep. Okay. Yes. But I think before, and again, I don't know if we have to do these in order, but at the back, at the last part of that chapter, always says recommendations and future recommendations that you haven't been able to get to. So I think we have to get to recommendations first, right?
Yeah, but just keep going over the,
Because once you have the recommendations, you move on to strategy, right? They are linked.
yeah,
So what page are we on now? We're
Bottom
going
of
with Laura's
12.
number 3?
number 3 that isn't numbered on this.
Again, this is, I didn't do this part,
Advise
that's why
the
I'm gonna
select
look.
board, that would be number 3. It doesn't have a new.
Yeah, so again, once we have recommendations, then we can make the zoning laws and land use, right? Changes, but we don't have recommendations yet, so that's, they're intertwined, 2 and 3 are intertwined, for
But
sure.
I would have a different opinion. I would say, when I look at 3,
Yeah.
all goes to the economic development. So I can say, from a zoning board, what
Yeah.
do I think, if we want economic development in town,
Yeah.
what am I seeing as a member of the zoning board
Right.
that's prohibiting or helping folks with development in town?
That's what we had that discussion, we'd give that to you and Jay
Right, but
and you, because you look at them all the time in planning, right?
Right.
Where, but I would help too if you needed it, just what would
But
you think
I
is?
think that's something we should float out to the entire committee and
Yeah.
get everybody's input on that. I mean, I think that, we should dedicate a meeting to that, or part of a meeting just specifically to that.
And I would agree. I mean, I think that's why we
Big
have
task.
each committee member.
we've
I
been
can
waiting.
say
Huh?
to,
Say that again, Kim?
I think we've been waiting, and so I think we need to actually dedicate some time and stick to it so that we can finish the report and not have to delay.
I agree, and once a month is tough, because, I don't know what other people's schedules.
but I think if we could put a firm agenda together saying, okay, number 2, Roman numeral 2, read it. If you aren't reading it, you're not here, you're gonna lose your ability to participate, and that's just what it is. And then number 3, and I agree with Jay, because we have representatives from each board here for a reason.
Right.
And I think how I believe that discussion would be the most positive is I can say, hey, look, I'm on the zoning board.
Yeah.
This is what I see.
Yeah.
Here's what I think. You on the planning board, yes or no, you may have a different opinion.
Envisioned, yeah.
And then you would say, hey, on the planning board, this is what I see. These are some of my concerns that
Exactly.
I see.
Yep.
Right.
What do you guys think?
Yep,
And I
that's
think
the
that type
delegation
of,
piece. Yep.
would be for number 3. Keeping in mind, though, they want us to be, we're reviewing them with the eye towards maintaining the character of the community, consistent with the master plan and the desires of the people. So when we're thinking about our regulations and changes, they have to be consistent with maintaining the character, consistent with the master plan and the desires of the people. So I think so that discussion could be zoning, planning, heritage, conscom. What are you doing to do those 3 things? What are your impediments? What do you see as helping do that? And I think that could go somewhat quickly, because I think a lot of it's going to be overlapping discussions and overlapping opinions because of the things that they're asking us to look at, those 3 things.
And that was in the charter, and that's true, that's the
Yep.
2 solid bookends, and I agree, that's what tonight's meeting's for, is how to strategy we're gonna go about this. So I do agree with that.
So
All
would
right,
next
again, I'm
steps be
going
to
with the
review
board.
chapter 6, all of us thoroughly?
Definitely reviews
And then we
chapter
can do our
6.
recommendations based on that?
So once chapter 6 is read, you're gonna see the old strategy, the old format, right? Things have changed, right? So it might not be, keep in mind, because you've been at all the meetings, you know the data that's unraveled, the themes you've seen, right? But I agree, so back to Laura, I agree with that, if you compartmentalize that by specialty of your group, right? Now, the only question I had was, and it's not a question, the Board of Selectmen says, what does the town people want? They told us,
They did,
right?
yep.
So if you look at your chapters by what they want, you can figure that out easily. That when Jay was here, he also went on a little step further, if you go back to that other page, and added a couple things they didn't think, but it was like a little small stuff. So, because again, if you just give people what they want, it's not gonna help the tax base. So he took it one step further, if you go back to that other handout I gave you, on page, let's see, page 4. I think he starts on 4. Did he do 4 or 5? Hold on, yeah.
It's just 4 pages.
Yeah, all right, so what did he do back here? He took, so he defined, he retail office spaces, he looked. All right, back to page 2. He went over farmer markets, he gave us examples of that, and it was cultural, right? Community, it was valuable to the community, right, on page 2? Doesn't help us tax-wise, but it was valuable to the community, and that's fine. Page 3, coffee shops, right? In a home, not a home, whatever. Breweries, vineyards, restaurants, bed and breakfasts. They are businesses, but do they? I think the people in town want things that help their day-to-day life and characteristics, quality of life in the town, but they're not going to give them the economic relief I think they're looking for.
Right.
So he took it to the next step and added, what about a small shopping center, like a little strip mall, right? What about a small modern retail store, or CVS? Mixed use, we started talking about, where you live upstairs and your business is downstairs, right? He started to show us that. So back to Laura. If we just did what they said on the survey, we do 1 through 5, right? Or whatever else is on the survey, right? But do we say, as a group, should we add a couple of more things they didn't ask for, but if they were open to it? If you look at your zoning ordinance for a CVS,
Suggestions, yeah.
maybe it's more compartmentalized up on 102. There's other things that maybe. So I guess that's the question. The Board of Selectmen said, what do the townspeople want?
I think
Do we take it at that word, or do we take that plus a little more?
I think we say this is the result of the survey, but this group that's been charged with the task has additional things to
Our
offer.
recommendation.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So our recommendations for what the town wanted was this, and if you wanted more, we want to give them a little, perfect. Okay, that's what I wanted you guys to tell as a group. Are you okay with
No,
that?
that makes sense.
Okay, so he took it, because that's just, I think. I remember Kim spent a lot of time, well, if we did collect money based on these, it really wouldn't help our 25 budget, yeah, well, that. Okay, good, so you're still in your lanes, right? Of all of that.
Yep, so I
Perfect.
just looked at chapter 6, that's 33 pages.
Yep,
And it does have the final,
last 2 pages.
Which
Yeah.
one are you looking at? What
is
page?
the,
What are you looking at?
Should we go to chapter 6?
Page 32 and
Oh, the last
33.
page we need to look at of the future. that
no,
they-
I'm looking at chapter, so Roman numeral 2,
Oh, Roman?
chapter 6 from
Yeah.
the 2002 master plan.
Yeah.
It talks about conclusion and economic
Yeah.
development strategy,
Yeah.
which I think is, Kim, where you were getting your words from.
Yeah.
But when I look at the strategy, I think it's the same, and I'm just gonna put it out there. Provide a planned and coordinated approach to economic development, broaden and increase the job and tax base, preserve rural community character.
Yeah, the survey came back pretty
I
much
just
in line
think
with what
we're
we
gonna
already
have a
have,
lot
for the most part.
But they also had a list of recommendations of things in the future.
Everything old is new.
I wanted to make sure that they still
Well,
apply or not. There was other things in
I'm
there.
not
I
seeing.
thought I saw it at the end of the chapter.
I'm seeing promotion, organization, promotion, economic development requires clear communication. And I think with master plans, even though towns spend a ton of money on them, it's the same thing pretty much wherever you go, as far as just, putting, boilerplate language in there, economic restructuring.
to
So
look at it.
I'm not seeing,
I thought it was a list at the back. Every master plan chapter, don't you see a list on the back of things to think of for the future?
I think
they have
I
economic.
could've sworn I saw it.
Yeah, they have economic objectives.
It's buried, right, but we'll read it and see
Yeah,
it.
no, there is stuff in there,
Yeah, but let's just see if
open
it's still
space.
applicable, right?
I'm
Right.
not seeing a huge change, but yeah, so that's in there, so I think that's 2, 3.
It's a big job.
I think 3, we don't need anything necessarily from 2 from, I think 3 is just what they asked us for.
Are you talking about what's
I'm
3 for
Roman
your
numeral
zoning?
3 on page 12.
Page 12, wait a minute, let me get there. Glasses help too. Page,
You're talking about charge number 3 from
I
the
know, I got into page
Yeah.
12.
Board of Selectmen.
12 of
Yep.
2.
Yep, 12 or 2.
Okay, so
Yes.
even if we had to come, so we're
So
gonna do.
we don't need recommendations, so only thing that we need for, to do 3 is the desires of the townspeople, and we know what that is.
We do, that's what I'm saying, it's,
Right, so-
I don't think they're gonna
I mean,
expect
so
what we're
3, I
saying,
mean-
but it's what they asked for, so.
So this report may not be, come back with them of a way to increase the tax base. It may come back with a way that this is based on the charge.
Based on the charge,
the-
that's.
What the people want is not gonna increase your tax base, but that's our findings, that's our conclusion, we did what you
Yeah.
wanted
Yeah,
to.
right, that's
I'm
all we
okay
can
with
do,
that.
we
That's-
can't make it
I'm
up.
okay with
No,
it.
and I don't want to.
I mean, we update the statistics on population, available land, right?
Yeah,
And the money that it will bring. Okay, again, if that's what you, we have to do the charge. I just thought the charge was, it unearthed something in the middle of it. I think they were expecting more bang for that, but with the limited space. But that's at the end. So there were recommendations in the chapter, and sometimes you can say, did they still apply or not, right? Yeah, they may not. One thing we did come up with, there was a survey. I'll address that next week. Never mind. I don't have it on the top of my head right now. There was something that we were gonna put on, Kim and I were just putting this together about something for the future for them to look at. But anyway, I'll get that for next week. All right, so next steps. We're gonna read chapter 6 next, right, for the economic for 2002. And
As
remember,
Laura was saying, it's 33 pages. The first 25 pages looks like demographic
I know,
information.
which we
and
have.
the last 4 pages are pretty much the meat of it.
Yeah.
And the last 2 pages actually has a bullet list of about
Right.
A whole bunch of
10 to 15 recommendations.
That's
And
what I
think
thought. I knew I saw it.
part of this is just
Okay, good.
figuring out if those should be altered.
Exactly.
Or
Exactly. Or even if they still apply. All right, so
most of them do.
we're not supposed to write your whole planning chapter, but we'll give you all we have the statistics for you for most of it, right?
Yeah.
All right, so when we're all, in 5 years, when somebody reads this who doesn't know any of us, says, how did they come to that conclusion? We have all of this data to back that.
Yep.
up. Okay, so, the one part about zoning was one of the charges, because again, we have 2 recommendations to planning board, updates. If you were gonna recommend a zoning change, it would just, it doesn't have to be the explicit law, it just has to be, they'd have to look at it again, right? You'd come up with some kind of a template, potential zoning change, but it doesn't mean it's gonna be a warrant article, right? If they decide to implement it, they'd have to look in more detail, right?
No, and I think that would fall into, the zoning change would fall into 3, because that would be
I
part
agree.
of my policies and regulations to do,
Right.
have an overlay district, and we're not gonna get into, like,
I
I mean,
can't.
I do think we should say, if you look at Charles Bancroft Highway from center line, if you're gonna go 500 to 1,000 feet, depending on how much land you wanna capture to be subject to the overlay district, so I think there's some things for, at least from a zoning point of view, that we should actually put in there to give it a little bit more
Right, you can add the
flavor
wording to it, knowing they're gonna have to look at it legally again to make sure, right? Just so you give them some kind of flavor
Yeah.
of what has to
Yeah.
happen. Yeah,
I think choosing that off center line distance is the most crucial part of that whole thing, too. Figuring out how far to go off the center line.
Right, and
Some of those lots are very, very deep, and that'd be very, it would cause extra issues for those owners or development later on if we go too
Right,
far.
and, well, yeah, I mean, if you take the center line and you're going, 1,000 feet,
Right.
that might not be enough.
Right.
Maybe you wanna go 2,000, and, we won't be able to necessarily say until we kinda take a look and leave it to somebody who's gonna really go in and analyze what lots there are there.
Right.
And then, once we kind of do that, then I think the next question is, well, how much of the performance standards do you want for zoning? Do you want the first 500 feet to kind of have more of a, lot of vegetation and plant life and no asphalt, no parking?
yeah. You just answered my question. We were talking about performance standards. That's what we were gonna add to the report.
That was the main problem at the planning board with the Heritage Commission trying to do a special overlay district, was they weren't particularly direct with how much they wanted to go off the center line between the 2 points. So that was the biggest issue.
Right, and that's the best way to determine it,
That makes the most sense by far.
Right, because then you got lots that are crooked and, oddly shaped, and then it can be messy.
Right.
So, for my own self, I can see where zoning definitely can do this exercise pretty clear in planning.
But there,
Heritage, I know you have, potentially looking at that, right, so you'd have to do some work. Conservation,
only recommendation.
and I'm sorry I'm not up to speed on it, but, what
not
kind of things are you looking
No,
at?
we're not.
Planning.
For changes that you would see?
I think retaining the rural character is important to the Conservation Commission, but we also have to balance that with economic development, and the question is like, where does that happen? And so that's why I like that, at the next meeting, we all read through chapter 6, and at 6:31, we can throw the map out on the table
Good to
or
me.
get the ideas out on the table,
Yeah.
then I think we can have that discussion and play off of each other and pros and cons and things like that. Maybe just come up with some solid recommendations on that front.
So chapter 6, recommendations are the two things I have, right?
For chapter, but I think, Jay, for
I
the
think we
Roman
have a
numeral
question.
3, like for Conservation Commission, what I would want to know, and the same for Heritage, like, what are you seeing in your day-to-day operations of development that's helping maintain the character, by helping with the economic development, or not? So that's kind of what I would want to hear from you, and especially as a member of the public, and the same for Heritage. So when people are coming in as part of their design review with an application, are you hearing like the same thing over and over
Right.
again? Oh my goodness, this regulation that the town of Litchfield has is horrible, you should think of changing it? Or you know what I mean, like, because I don't know that, I don't go to the Heritage meeting, I don't go to
Well, we
Conscom,
don't,
I don't go to
we
planning.
don't, that's not what we do. I mean, we
Right.
only review demolition permits for
Okay.
buildings that are
Well,
over a certain age.
Then what do you,
It really has nothing to do with economic development.
well, it does.
Other than that, well, yeah, because they want the land to develop,
Mm-hmm.
but, you know, we have no hammer. I'll just say that. We have, you know, we can make a recommendation, but that, we have no, you
Well,
know,
a lot of
right to our
Doesn't mean that
part.
we can't
Yep.
work with each other, right, to find a solution that fits.
Good example, Laura, is that we have a 75-foot setback on wetlands. I think most other communities have a 50-foot setback on wetlands, or many other communities have a 50-foot setback on wetlands. Do we reduce it, or do we increase it? You know, and that's, what I'll do is, we have a meeting coming up in a couple of weeks. I'll throw this out on the table, just so to try to get a little bit of consensus, and
That'd be great.
we'll go from there.
Because that would affect developable land by adjusting that setback, so.
Yeah, and there's conservation open space developments over 10 acres, you know, maybe take a look at that. I mean, there's a few things that I think fall under our purview that we could take a look at.
You look like you want to say something?
Would be great.
When we have recreation not here, right? Who else is in here?
Yeah,
Peter.
just recreation, just Peter.
I'm sure they have their,
Yeah.
what they need. Did you have something? You
So,
like you
I
wanted to
mean,
jump in?
granted, it's 2 years later, so that is what it is. I'm going back to remembering the conversation of the selectmen and the reason for creating their subcommittee. And I'll go back and watch the meetings because I remember the discussions being a little different. So I think we should figure out,
What do you think?
I
is-
understand the charge that's on the website. I'm not finding in the Board of Selectmen's minutes that those were exactly their words, so I think we need to figure out
So we'll do
exactly
that.
what it was
Be
that,
good then,
All right,
yes.
so we'll get that.
that
That's
they
great.
asked.
Okay.
Because I think, you know, we remember that the whole thing coming to a head, it was right after budget, it was right after we were working on warrant articles, and the discussion was about finding out what the residents wanted for economic development within the town, and how we develop a plan to move towards that. That's what I remember. I don't know what you remember.
So, I had to go back. I thought this generated from an impact fee discussion, but it did not. And I do see one of our minutes actually said we are not to discuss impact fees. However, you are right, it was the warrant article period, and people were asking for economic relief, right? It was really a tougher time. So I think they wanted businesses here, but they wanted to do it what the people wanted to have here, right? We have existing zone ordinances, businesses can come here today, right? So let's look, so again, maybe I'm reading from off of minutes where what you're reading off of the website, right? That could be some of the disconnect, right? Which is again, why we are draft mode until we refine this, right?
So,
We're going back
I'm
to April
sorry,
and May
July
of-
10th,
Well, what's the
2023.
first thing I said? They
July
gave us the
10th.
charge
July
on what day?
10th, 2023, Board of
May 23rd,
Selectmen.
you said.
Charge of the Board of Selectmen, A, to create an economic survey and data collection model that will accurately reflect the feedback and desire of all townspeople. So it definitely says economic survey and data collection.
Okay, so we did economic survey, we have data collection, plus the backup data, right?
Yeah, that's
So
what we have here.
We did all
that's
of that
one.
research into
Right, and
this.
that's exactly what it
Because,
says on the
because
chart.
if the town wanted something, but we couldn't do it because the data's not supporting it, right? We would have to point that out as well.
So it does appear that that was,
Right.
And that's what I have.
so, yeah, I'm not,
Okay.
I'm
Oh,
just
oh,
saying
sorry.
I found it.
Sorry.
We're just gonna
That's all
cross-check it
right.
to make sure. And what do you remember something different that you want to
So-
speak of now, or not really? You want to hold it to yourself? I don't know. So.
No, I'm just saying I found it, and
Okay.
I wanted to make sure that which version was correct before we move forward.
So this also came back because I went to NRPC, DOT was in the room, they said the project is dead. Hudson had already pulled out, they already voted for it on their warrant articles, they were out, Nashua never wanted it, right? So we said, hey, maybe there's more land there, right? And that's also in this report where we're asking the state, what do you plan to do with that land, right?
It's dead as far as the NRPC goes, but I seem to recall that
Right,
it's
it has
not
to
dead at the state
internally
level,
go
right?
through the
We're waiting
state,
for the-
yes. Yeah, it was on DOT, first
been-
they put it on it'll never happen column, then DOT killed it at NRPC, but then they still had to go through it. Do you want to update them on the current status of that land? It's pretty simple, but yeah, want to give just the group an update on the land, that why we can't have that?
Yes, state council has advised, town council and I that there will be no discussion
Oh, they did.
on the future of the land. As far as the realizing it's come off the 10-year plan, that is mute to the state. So things go up to an administrative executive council at the state, and only they can remove it from the state, decide whether the state needs it or wants it.
So
or-
that's the process, but
Right.
they said no because, do you want to tell them why?
Right,
Right, you've said it at public meetings, right?
what?
Why
Well-
we can't use that
Penetrate.
piece.
Well, there's one piece,
what's the-
there's
do you
one piece that has, but there's other pieces that they will not discuss until they have worked with the administrative council at the state. They will not release any land.
But can you tell them or no about
There's
the
one-
one piece? Can you tell them about the
What
one
is,
piece?
what is the?
The
issue?
one piece has,
You can tell them that? So
yeah,
they
it
know?
has a
So they
plan
know.
to be developed with Pennachuck Water. Yep.
the
One
one
of
on
the
the
major
river.
pieces,
The one on the river?
This piece down here?
the large, yes.
Okay.
So there's still other pieces they own that they're not talking about,
Right, that they won't discuss.
that they won't discuss.
4, 5, 6. That piece.
That
there?
piece.
Okay. Just a little pie piece, Jane, or the?
Okay, so what else is on the agenda here? So review of the in-process report. I'll finish it just so we have a timeline of all the data we collected and everything, okay?
Yeah.
We will meet, so just so I said, I'm looking here, the delegation of report sections. I think, let me just finish this by the last pieces
Yeah,
here.
okay.
We can delegate more next week, but everyone's gonna read chapter 6, economic development.
Yeah.
The recommendations we'll come back with for each person, right? We'll go over that. I will look at the charge from the minutes versus.
I just did.
Okay, so I'll just verify too, and I'll fix my document if
Okay.
it's wrong, okay? Charge, I'll just revisit that. Okay.
Did we want to talk about
Oh,
D and E on the charge? So I know we
Where's
just,
D and E?
4 and 5 on
Oh,
page
4 and 5,
13.
sorry, I didn't get there. I didn't, because I don't, let's see. Do we
So
have to finish 3, 1 through 3 first, or D,
Did that.
A through C? Let me see.
so we did,
Which page
we
are
were
you on?
on page 12, and we were talking about 3. And then there's, on page 13,
13 I'm on, yep.
there's 4 and 5.
Can we do that? Is that?
Well, I think
That's after, right?
well, no, not, I mean, it talks
Advocate.
about advocate, and I put that language in there about ways that we can advocate. I don't think it's really an appropriate charge for the committee, because we're not advocating for anything. But we can put out ways to advocate, and that's why I put that in there, that's ways to advocate. I mean, this committee shouldn't be advocating for
Would
that.
that just be, we would work with somebody who was gonna come in
Yeah.
and wanted to do something, we would assist
yeah.
them to try to
Yeah,
get grants
we-
and stuff like that?
yeah.
Wouldn't be,
It's probably grants, or advocate for state and federal grants, incentives, because we're gonna disband at some point, right? Advocate for state and federal grants, incentives for improvement of regulations that help. But again, we had to get our recommendations all in here first before we knew
Says
what. to go on the
infrastructure
platform, right?
development as well on
Yeah,
that.
infrastructure's the balance too, yep.
Where do you see infrastructure?
We have talked about that in here too with the balance.
Under
of that.
4,
4.
page 3,
Oh, this one.
the
sorry.
last 2 words are infrastructure development.
Yep.
Advocate for state and federal grants to support economic and infrastructure development.
I know, but that's incorrect. That's not the right
Yeah,
charge.
so the backpack, don't look at the report because I haven't tweaked it yet. I only
No,
stopped.
this part she's saying
Which
is
one are you
wrong.
looking at?
She's saying that this
What
is
am I
wrong.
supposed to be looking
You're
at?
supposed to be
I'm
looking
saying
at,
this
I'm not
is
sure.
wrong.
I'm
What
looking
I
at
put
page
in?
13.
Looking at page
Yeah, but number,
13.
this is her number 4, and
13,
your number 4
Roman
is
number 4.
wrong.
Throw that one out.
Infrastructure
Okay,
is
that's
not
why we
there.
got I don't know.
I had the
okay,
charge
I don't
right in
know
front
why
of me
that's
from the
happening.
Laura,
meeting minutes.
Laura,
confused
you're saying that this is yours, and the other one that Kim did is blue, and the infrastructure word is wrong. Okay, that's what I just
What is-
explained to Kim.
So,
I already have that as a list to look at, why they're out of sync.
so number 4,
Yeah,
according to the meeting minutes and the charge on the website,
Yeah.
is advocate for state and federal grants,
Yeah.
incentives, or regulations improvement that help
see
advance the town's priorities.
yes.
That's it.
So it has nothing to do with infrastructure development,
Right.
which says number 4
So
in blue
I will, again,
says that.
I'm looking at one
Okay.
thing, you're looking at another. I will figure out why they're
She's
out of
just
sync.
comparing to see why they're not the same.
I don't know
Because-
why, that's why I said I will
Because
research.
you took them from the minutes of our first meeting,
Thank you.
which did not reflect the Board of Selectmen minutes.
I'm reading right from the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes
Okay,
when they
good.
created the committee, July 10th,
Okay, so we're looking at
2023.
two
July
different things that
10th?
were generated,
10th,
that's the
2023.
problem. So
That's
I will
it,
find
and
out which
these
is
are
the
mine.
correct
That's
one,
what
and
I'm
I will make it, the updates. That's on my list here, the charges to revisit and just make sure.
So
Right.
for the D, advocate for the state, federal grants, and
Yep.
that I think is a charge that this board should just comment on.
Yep.
And I think I did some comments on that, like these are, we can, review grants as other opportunities out there that can assist with improving regulations in town. There's those HOPO grants, there's a lot of things out there that I think through planning you may have heard of.
Yeah.
I think Jay would be a great resource to be like, hey, can you tell us some grants that are available, some organizations that have grants?
He will
And
be
I-
here next.
And I think that that's all we do for that charge,
I
because
agree
there's
with
really
you.
not much
Yep,
there
I
to do for that one
You
at
even
all,
said that way back, yeah.
Yeah, no, that should definitely go down to our individual committees that we happen to be on, with, yourself in zoning, myself in planning, and then Peter over in, recreation, so.
Right. And I think like ConsCom, they got the grants for the purchase of the property, so like just knowing those key organizations and
Yep.
putting them pen to paper and saying, here's some places that you can go when you want to advocate. That's what I would do in the last charge, is make recommendations to streamline permitting, licensing, and other regulatory functions, which ties back into C, that talks about what can we do within our boards to make economic development
Right.
streamlined.
Well, we did that, you did that, your group did that. You have a flow chart of that, right? Why don't you bring that next week? So for contractors, for builders, it explains a process, how the stream works, and when it calls in different boards. You've seen it, right?
Oh, yeah.
You helped create it,
that
right?
was a
So that
dis-
can help here on number 5, right?
Absolutely.
I think it's 5 and E. It's D and E. We went to the planning board and we had a conversation
We
with the
did.
planning board. Planning board asked us to put together a flow chart, and we have done that. It is currently being reviewed by Jay at NRPC and Lou Karen, our town engineer. But it doesn't list boards except for the plans going to conservation, which they do, and what happens if someone needs a variance. And that's, but I'll share it with
Did
the,
Laura see that? Because she's on the zoning. But it also went to the fire department, the police department, right? So, because we used to send
Yes,
them
all
back
the
to
town
get questions, right?
Right.
So they actually do a technical meeting
Review.
before you get it, so just to. speed
Yes,
it
that was
up.
the main part we talked about, was the
To speed
technical
it
meeting
up
in
for the
advance of coming
builders
to planning.
But zoning, yeah.
we
you didn't
create,
No, I didn't see anything.
the conversation was that the developers and the townspeople should be provided some type of document to illustrate how things flow through the town when they are
Applying.
presented as a potential development.
Show them how easy it is to do business in the.
That's correct.
And I think that would be a great starting point for E, because that's showing us what we have, and then the charges, what are recommendations can we make to that flow chart to streamline permitting, licensing, and other regulatory functions?
Well, so I think
So we need to already
permitting
get it.
is a function of the Board of Selectmen. And the building department, right, for all intensive purposes, that's permitting. So that is part of our review that we're doing right now. I don't know what other type of permitting, Jay, is there, conservation? Maybe that might have some ideas on permitting, at least the,
Did you see the flow chart?
Did I see the what?
The flow chart that the planning board and,
I thought Joan was sharing it.
can they see it now or not?
Oh,
really?
yeah,
Can you
it's
email it to
absolutely,
them? Because I think your names, not your name, but your departments are on
Absolutely.
it, that they should be aware of it.
I
But it
mean,
is
I
part
asked
of
Joan to
Section E
just,
here.
to send it out.
Do you have an email?
Is that on the town website
It
someplace?
was on the floor.
No, it's just a draft. It hasn't been
Yeah,
approved
they're
by
still
anybody.
finalizing it now,
Just when a plan comes in, what happens? What's the flow?
pretty much.
Our charge was to, once we had it looked at by,
need to
people
get you
here, was to give it to the planning board, because ultimately it's them to say yes, no, add to it, delete from it, change it, whatever.
Do you think we'll be pretty much done by our next meeting with that, or no?
I think we were waiting for the feedback from Joan,
Okay.
and NRPC, but,
So we can at least discuss a
I
draft.
mean, I'm
of that
happy to
next
share it, it's just a draft.
Can you email it right now, or?
Yep,
is it-
I can.
And
Okay,
just
I
to-
think you're gonna, I think it's nice, but maybe you see a kink in the flow, you should need to let us know, but.
And Jay, just to
Right.
follow up on the question about you for permitting, I think each board has permitting, and I think part of our recommendation, if you're seeing people having trouble getting AOT permits or dredge and fill permits, that they're required to come see you, if we say to the Board of Selectmen, hey, look, this AOT process is horrible, then that gives them, I think, some impetus to reach out to their local state reps and be like, hey, can you make some changes up at the state to help this AOT process?
Yep.
Or if it's New Hampshire Department of Transportation, we're not getting driveway permits on time, it's taken us 9 months before we can get a permit. But that's so when you're looking at permitting, I think from a town's point of view, like, what is your board seeing, that's far as that? What am I seeing? What is planning seeing? If you're, like, there's one particular application that I know has been in front of the planning board because it took them 2 years plus to get a driveway permit. And
Yeah,
it came in
that's,
front of
I
my
think it's more of a
board.
staffing issue than anything else in the state.
But
yeah.
those are the type of things
Yeah.
that, say, hey, Board of Selectmen, we're routinely seeing issues with AOT permits or dredge and fill permits or driveway
It's a good
permits.
point. The Barrens development up by St. Francis, that apparently was kibosh because of a wetland situation. And the wetland situation went to the state, and then I guess it went to the federal government, and the wetlands mitigation that was required, or the mitigation that was required to impact those wetlands was way above and beyond what the developer.
Right.
So they were going to take out, just say, 1,000 square feet of wetlands, and you had to replace that with 10 acres somewhere, something
Right.
like that.
It wasn't a very,
But-
That's was something I
Equal.
thought that we could advocate.
But those are the type of
State.
things I think for E, you can say, like, when you fill in wetlands, you have to pay money into the ARM fund, the Aquatic Resource Management Fund. And you can say, we see developers coming in that, their request to fill in wetlands is now becoming cross prohibitive because up at DES, this is what we're seeing. I don't know what you're saying, that may not be true, but I think those are some of the recommendations, so then that they can say, okay, who are my state reps? Let me call them up, who's my state senator? What changes can I make up at the state that can help with development?
right, that makes sense,
Okay,
because our
we
land is
want-
not gonna change, so.
We weren't getting into that. Like, we were not getting into what's required at the state on this. I just want to say that.
Okay.
We
Wait,
did not discuss that at all.
No, and I think what
What do
you're
you mean?
saying,
Could you say that again?
we did not discuss and put on the flow chart at all what's required of, at the
talking
state
about
level.
us.
No. I'm just saying, don't look for that on the flow chart, because it's not there.
I think we're
This
just
is
talking
how
about
it flows
potential
through us.
ways they can help.
But I think this falls into 5 for us to go ahead and do this, because our land's not gonna change. So if something like Barron's did, they have the same darn problem again, with no resolution for it, so we gotta
It's
deal
a-
with this.
And now that land's gonna get developed in.
Economic Development Group?
It's a good
Economic
point, Laura.
development.
There's another one that came up
Now you have a
recently,
problem.
it's the 1972 New Hampshire DOT driveway law, which is the frontage, they'd go
I
back
know,
to
yeah.
1972, which
Right.
prohibited the gas station
I know.
from having
I-
two driveway
I know.
entrances.
And-
Which this does not, that didn't make I see the spirit of the rule, but it didn't make sense for that particular application. That's why Renee only has one driveway
Right.
entrance. They went back to 1972, they said you can only have one driveway based on the frontage way back then, and
Right.
that's something that would be interesting to advocate
And
for.
I think that's what should be in there. And I can say from zoning, I don't like criteria number 5, the way that's worded at the state legislature. I think criteria number 5 is very difficult for people to understand, very difficult to implement, very difficult for the board. And I can say for planning, I think some of, the regulations regarding active and substantial development, you lose that. Vesting, those are all issues that are gonna come up. Those are all issues that are concerning. Those are just what I'm thinking about for E.
All valid points.
Next meeting, the state level is voting on a lot of land use items, and that could impact us as well, right? Because manufactured homes can now be on single, they're beautiful, but they can be on any developable lot, right?
Accessory dwelling
And what
units
else
are
is
up.
accessory dwelling units, right? There's a lot there that also can
Parking
impact our
requirements.
population, as well. But anyway, we'll keep an eye on some of those legislation, there's like four pieces
Do
up
you
there.
consider accessory dwelling units economic development?
I do. Why not? It's increasing the tax base, it's getting people in town.
Maybe a recommendation is to bump it up from 800 feet to 1,000 feet, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, and that would be something,
raise it.
that's,
The new laws, no less. It's not giving you a minimum.
the new law
But
is
didn't you just change
horrible.
something on the planning board about?
No, we approved a variance,
I
but
can-
we
I can-
didn't change anything at all.
For the gentleman
We
with the
just
gas station,
received
too.
it, I can send it on.
That was pretty good size.
Was it
But it
signed yet?
costs them so much
The
money and
accessory
time
dwelling?
to
They
have
signed it
people
just
going back to DOT and go,
Not-
years, like you said, are
Was
going
it
by
just
business
signed? So I
opportunities.
was waiting for that.
It can bankrupt people because, like I said, you wait for years, you gotta go back and get drawings. It's awful. It's an awful process, so, yeah.
Well,
All
I hope
right.
the zoning stuff at the
I got
state
it fine.
does not take away local control from what we can do.
Yeah, that's what we're watching, right?
So that new accessory dwelling, I didn't know it was signed, I know it was waiting for 587.
950, right?
Right, and the way it's worded,
It's the opposite of
it's
how.
awful. It says that, it's something that the municipality,
You have that email now.
if they want it bigger than 950, they have to expressly
flow
say
chart.
it, but it doesn't say that you can have it as a matter of right. So that's gonna be a struggle for the zoning board of interpretation of that.
Let's see. All right, so after, we have our meeting next time. We go after recommendations, chapter 6, all of that, right? At that point, should we delegate? I mean, I think we're gonna have most of what we need at that point, right? Yeah? And then we delegate at that point, so we have one more week of research, but the recommendations definitely are the key, right?
And what are we delegating, Kim?
So we're gonna all read chapter 6. You're gonna come back with recommendations for the new economic strategy based on what we've all done, right? And what the town wanted,
What the people said.
what the people said. I will make sure the charge that I have and you have are in sync. I'll figure out the right one. You already have the flow chart. I don't need that anymore. All right. We'll get track of any state of New Hampshire legislation that changes for our report. After that, so after we all come back with recommendations, say we each have 4 or 5, consolidate them, right? Because that's gonna go into this final report as well, right? We need that, which then triggers all the zoning ordinances and stuff that we need. And then we have groups here, conservation, planning, zoning, historical, or heritage, and I should say probably recreation too, that are gonna think about problems in their lane that they're seeing, right, for permitting, yeah? Or anything,
Are we
or
doing
zoning
that
changes.
next?
Do you wanna do that for next one, or do you need another week break? You tell me.
I think I would love for us to plow through it as much as we can.
I'm okay, but again, you guys have the bulk of the work on this one here.
So I think we need to be
next
clear on what is expected of the members for the next week. I think the first thing that is expected of us is to read chapter 6
Yeah.
with an eye on the charge for recommendations. Then for the next charge is to think about whatever committee you're on.
Yeah.
What are your bylaws? What are your policies? What are your regulations? And how are they, or how are they not, consistent with maintaining the character of our community, being consistent with the master plan and the desires of the town people? And then I think each person should talk about that. And then, the next one, I think, within your group and why you're here, what resources have you found helpful for grants, incentives, or improvement in regulations that you think would help advance the town's priorities? So if you had a certain grant people that you work with, if there's certain things like New Hampshire Preservation Alliance, if you find them to be a good resource, if planning has somebody that's a good resource, Peter, you know, whatever you have, that would help with 4. And then 5 is the final one about what would be your recommendations within your individual committee capacity that you think would be helpful to streamline permitting. And I think Kim's, chart would be great. We can look at that, and then from there, that would give everybody, and again, I think it's important for whatever committee you're on to start the conversation for your committee, and then let people jump in and say, oh, I see the same thing with me, I see something different, oh, I didn't know that happens with you. Now, can you do that all in one meeting?
Can you do that? Oh, I think we can review it in one meeting. Do you have time to do that personally? Because that's what I'm asking. I don't mind if that's it.
When is the next meeting?
Well, that's the next thing we can ask, so.
End of July.
It's July 30th, I believe, but, is it July 30th? But if you want to meet before then, you can let me know. That's up to you. But you need research. It sounds like this is a big job, zoning and planning.
I'm fine with
Less
it.
so for the school.
Because are you trying to come up with potential zoning changes? So let me just look at the charges again. I'll look at your charges so we keep it.
Well, I think we might bite off too much if we try to do
That's
2,
what I mean.
3, 4, and 5 next meeting. Maybe just try for 2 and 3 for next
Check my
meeting.
email?
I mean, just to be more realistic on it.
Oh, okay, July 30th.
But reading chapter 6, I think, is definitely crucial for us all to do prior to the next meeting. And then hopefully we all bring in our recommendations, so we can at least work on 2, no matter what next meeting.
That's fine, so then
And
just
then if
do
we
2
can break
next
into
meeting.
3, it'd be great.
So if we did 2 next meeting, then we could do the other ones, 'cause I don't think as much of a heavy lift.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
And we have a good base to work off of too, if we have 2
That
done.
works for me.
And do you have to check, so some of you are already the chairman, but if you're working with, you're representing planning, do you have to have any internal discussions with them?
We're already working on this,
Okay.
because of the, Northern Commercial Zone.
Oh, yeah, that's one.
Well, even a chair can't speak for their committee without discussing
Right.
it with their committee.
Yes, I'm saying, so
Even
you
if
need, my
you're a
point
chair.
I
is,
will
the
bring up what
minutes
we're
of
talking
meetings
about at our
run,
next meeting, to
you
see if
need to
everyone wants
have-
to discuss
Yeah.
this. I gotta see how heavy our load is for that next meeting, so, but I will bring it up.
Do you have the bandwidth in your group to have discussions if you needed
We
it?
have a meeting in a couple of weeks, but we actually discussed this way back well over a year ago.
Okay, good.
And we kind of took about an hour out of one of our meetings and pretty much like laid the map out on the table. The one thing that we didn't look at is we don't really have any regulations, but we didn't look at the things that are under our purview.
You have bylaws?
And we have bylaws, but we don't, we're a guidance board.
Advisory.
But we do cover wetlands, natural resources and things like that. So I'll bring that to our commission next meeting and we'll get a consensus.
And then there's a interesting interplay with the zoning and conscom. When people come to us for certain relief under the zoning, they're supposed to be going to you and to, 2 other folks in town for review and comment before we have the public hearing. So there's that, nice interplay between the 2 of us too.
I've noticed a few times that hasn't happened recently. But in prior years, it happened like.
Well,
that
I think
all
there's
the
been a
time.
little bit of change with going on, right. So we have a wetlands application coming to us next month. I just saw the agenda.
So the flow chart's gonna come in handy.
Right, yeah. Is that part of the current flow chart?
Do you see that? You have it now.
It should be part of the flow chart. When a plan comes in, does it trigger a wetlands review, yes or no? And if it does, it should come to us first.
Right.
We review it, provide comment to you, you've gotten my letters before,
Well, you know it.
and then they go to you.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's what the flow chart looks like.
Well, so I would recommend that
if that's how, that we lay that out, because you need to remember that there is town staff that is brand new. And that if that's not documented in any of the current, things with the town, that our building inspector may not know that.
Did you see the flow chart
So
you
is
just sent
there,
in the email?
is
I
there,
haven't not looked at it yet. no.
You'll see, it's only a page and a half.
is there a document that says that that is the process?
Yep.
Is there zoning?
It's in the zoning ordinance.
bylaws?
No, it's not, it's in the zoning ordinance.
Okay. I'll have that reviewed by Mr. Osborne. Of course, I think it's helpful. I mean, it's been a challenge
To tell
with the change
Peter Ames.
and really kind of no discussion, so.
In the
With the
past, anything
change
that encroached on any of the wetland buffers, you know what I mean, in the past, I would say, last year and before, those folks always came to the Conservation Commission first. And then they went to the zoning board. But I've noticed a few zoning cases recently where there are wetlands impacts that we never were advised that was even happening.
I don't remember Jeff doing that,
No,
but.
Jeff did do that.
The Pearson thing came to you guys before, right?
I would think it was the last,
The last one?
yeah.
We'll have to review the chart then,
No
too.
complaints,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah.
That sounds like an important.
No, I'm sure it's just a change in
Well,
staff.
it's all,
So it's,
It is.
you're on there, Jay, but it doesn't ask the question.
Yeah, it just says
It doesn't-
conservation.
It just says conservation. It doesn't say, it doesn't impact wetlands, yes or no.
Yeah.
It just, so that.
It was emailed to you, Jay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
so let's review that also before next
Yeah, I
meeting,
didn't
if we
know
can,
that
to have that taken care of. So if you see optimization for that, would be great. Also, Marion, if you guys are still working on something for a special heritage zone, if we can get that, some ideas for that in advance would be good.
Okay.
for the historic district? Is
Yeah,
that what
for
you're talking
whatever you guys are trying to come up with for the off center line, or how, which streets you guys are going between, 'cause that'll definitely impact this. So,
And then we'll update Peter Ames,
Mhm.
talk with him on this,
Do you have it yet?
no, all right, for recreation, right?
Because there's certain things, Jay, like
All right.
special exceptions.
So
that says
we're all
that.
agreeing that it's a lot to do, so you'll definitely do part 2 and maybe part 3. I guess B and E, right, next time.
Laura, can you go
that what
over,
I'm
you
hearing?
seem to have the
B&E?
best grip on this. Can you go over for next meeting what you expect?
Well, we just did, right?
Yeah, I mean,
We
I
should
can
wait.
just,
Through it quick,
guys,
and it's
wait,
like
wait,
A, B, and I'm not seeing it. I actually had to
So
print it off
chapter
on a piece of
6,
paper.
let me see if it's right, chapter 6, read that.
We got that.
Make your recommendations, get a list of that ready, we'll review that next time, right? You said to go through your boards and look at your bylaws, policies, right, and regulations, right?
Yep.
For that, right? And then we said that's probably enough, right? Because you have internals
that
to
would
do
be
in your own,
That's
definitely
good.
more than enough.
right?
Yes.
And then, so, at that point, right?
Right.
Is that what we're doing? Is there
well, I
anything
went
else we
through and I
missed?
said what we needed to do for 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, but I
I
think
think
they
the
said-
consensus is we're only gonna focus on 2.
Small bites, the
Yeah,
small
focus on
bites.
2, but I think people should know that 3, 4, and 5 are coming fast and furious right after that.
They're not nearly as complex.
What's that?
They're not as nearly
They're not.
complex.
No, and they're
as
not.
the-
And see what the
No, they're not.
recommendations are too. That could be good. And that's good, I think that's a good, that's a lot, actually.
Laura, there's some recommendations that we may make unless we decide not to go down this path, but we have been talking about overlay districts and do we expand the zones or do we contract the zones or change them around or whatever? Some of, I'll get input from the Conservation Commission on that, but some of that discussion, I think is gonna be more
Here.
fluid here. We're back and forth, and so I'm gonna be prepared for next meeting to come with those, correct?
Sure. To come with,
I'm talking about like zoning changes, like, what do we do with the zoning lines? There should be I'm assuming there's gonna be recommendations as part of the Economic Development Committee that says, we recommend, it's not hardcore, but say, we recommend that the planning board look at implementing an overlay district down 3A, that's 1,000 feet in this direction, that supports home-based businesses, crafters,
Yep.
farm-based businesses, and things like that.
If that requires a zoning change, we should definitely look at that, so.
That's all in there.
And that would be for next meeting, right?
If that's part of chapter 6, it would be for next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which I believe part of chapter 6, like Kim said, has the recommendation then that would be a recommendation to look at zoning changes, which will include, and we're not gonna go gangbusters on all the different details for the zoning overlay, but we wanna give them a general idea of what we think would be appropriate.
When you give variances, it's a hard thing. Do you have to think of potential variances you give folks?
If you do an overlay district and they meet the requirements of
Oh,
the
yeah,
overlay
they're
district,
okay,
then
yeah.
you would not need a variance.
But
But
you
the whole
do
point is
give
to streamline
variance.
things anyway, so to avoid variances
Right.
is the main idea.
That's what I'm trying
Right,
to
I mean-
get at. Which
Guardrails around
variances
what
do
you're
you?
gonna allow in that.
Correct.
I mean, you could do what they call an innovative land use control, and you can say that the Charles Bancroft overlay district is an innovative land use control to be administered solely by the planning board, and you take the zoning board right out of it, and it's one-stop shopping. They come to you for a conditional use permit, for whatever they can't meet in that section, and they never see zoning. And people tend to like that. If the town knows how to administer it, then that's an option. So you have different creative options that you can do.
That
depending on-
expedites it on their side, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's a benefit.
Well, that's the streamlining.
Yeah, definitely streamline, yes.
And innovative land use controls are a wonderful tool if they're properly worded, and the town knows how to
That wording would be very
implement them.
crucial.
Oh, trust me, I know. And if the town knows how to implement them, because even I've seen towns, they have innovative land use control and they're sending people to the zoning board. I'm like, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. And I feel like I haven't talked about like Heritage a lot, and I think Heritage has a lot to offer, as far as all this, process, and especially the rural character of the town. So I think I'm hoping that you're gonna have a lot to
Well,
say.
unfortunately, I was gonna ask if there was any way we could have a meeting before the 30th, because I'm not gonna be here at the 30th. I can't.
Well, that was one of the questions, but I didn't know if they had to go back and talk to your own boards. And it sounds like you do. Right.
Well,
Who's your backup? Do you have a backup?
July 30th, right? I mean,
July 30th.
July 30th, right.
I would hope we could
I'll
squeeze
see if
something
I can
in the
get
next
one.
6 weeks.
I mean, my backup is Carl, but it's not coming.
It's up to you. You have the workload here, right? I'm
Okay,
just
I'll
finishing
see
up.
if I can send somebody
what
else.
we did.
But I won't be here.
But you said you don't have your meeting for 2 more weeks, right? You just had a couple of weeks out.
It's the week after next. We have a
When are
meeting.
you going away?
Well, I know I won't be here for that, the 30th.
You going on another trip?
No,
I wanna come.
that was 5 weeks. That was a long trip.
Do you have a backup for you?
Talk to.
Oh, I'm sorry. No?
No. Obviously not.
I don't know. Got a Heritage Commission there. I don't know. Can you do anything beforehand and just
Yeah,
submit it
well,
to them?
that's what I'm hoping I can do. Or I can send somebody else. I'll see.
if you could send someone, at least turn in something to us to
Yeah.
get your words on paper so we can read it, that'd be at least the bare minimum if you want to
Yeah.
have us develop
Right.
this stuff, so.
I guess I'm just trying to think of the scenario. We give them what they asked for. We give them the changes that the town people wanted. But when we deliver the news that it may not be economic impact that they expect,
But that's
you're
neither
okay,
here
that's
nor-
the conclusion of the
That's-
findings,
yeah,
right?
that's all we
You're
can
all-
do.
okay.
I think doing anything else would be disingenuous. I mean,
I
this
agree,
is.
I agree,
this
that's
is
why I
what-
asked about the
Yeah,
other
we
4
can't-
businesses they
yeah.
asked for. Okay,
To stream, just so that we don't go all over the place
Yeah.
at the next meeting, I think something like giving each committee member 5 minutes to kind of state what their recommendations are and what they heard from their board, and just kind of like move around the table. And maybe we'll start seeing some common themes pop up, that might boil into low-hanging fruit recommendations. And like for me, I'll talk to the Conservation Commission about all the things that Laura also said, but also maybe approaches to zoning and what the folks on the Conservation Commission would feel would be pertinent within, with a consensus of our group. And, I'll be prepared to bring that that forward. And I think if we kind of each go around and each get 5 minutes to lay out what the summary is from recommendations from your group, then maybe that'll help spark the conversation versus jumping all over the place.
All right, with that, I only request I would have is if you could write it down. You could,
Yes.
just so I have some kind of a documentation of it.
Oh, to turn an
And
agenda?
again, knowing that it may change the following week, because you'll hear
Yeah.
something that might impact your thought, or, whatever, right? Or spur a thought, right? That's
Yeah.
good too, so.
Throw a PowerPoint up there on
Sure.
Google Drive and I'll
Yeah,
throw my bullets right in the PowerPoint if anybody wants to follow
Whatever you
along
wanna
with
do.
that.
as long as I have something.
I'll speak to the town departments. I know we've had suggestions and discussed them with Joan. So,
Yeah, exactly, the person on the planning board.
some ideas.
Absolutely, her input's great.
And
Okay.
it would be great to get that opinion, Kim, to see
Yeah,
what the
that's what I
staff
mean.
thinks. You know what I mean? Those people
We
that
don't
are-
think there should be any difference in detached ADUs.
Oh, no, I'm just saying,
Process.
no, I'm just saying in general, like,
Right.
if you're
Yeah.
talking to them, like, what are they seeing? You know what I mean, from a staff point of view? I mean, you're the front line.
As leadership, we meet
No, that'd be
all the
great.
time.
No, that'd be great to see what, what
All right,
the
I'm
staff
going on
feels
that.
is issues.
All right, so do we have our next, July 30th? Do we know what we're doing, right? Well, we'll reach out to Peter. I'll look at the list, see if anyone else was missing. All right. I think this was very good. I appreciate all your help and efforts on this. I think we're getting their recommendations. Okay. All right, and I'll have definitely copies. Thank you, enjoy. Good night, everyone. Does anyone else have anything they want to say?
I'm gonna make a
before-
motion
I'm gonna
to
make a motion,
close.
but I just wanted, anyone else have anything to
No,
say?
I'm
I
good.
never opened, non-public, public, so nobody's here, closed, open, closed. All right, any other discussion? All those,
Nope.
and I'll take a motion to, if anyone would like to leave.
Yeah, I move that we
Marion?
adjourn.
And second,
Second by Peter.
I guess I'll take that. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Kim,
Yeah.